Hey there, Ron Sullivan, your online hitting consultant. This is my buddy Keelan, coming out of his first season of Kid Pitch, right? And he's about 50 pounds soaking wet, and I've been working with him since he was probably about 35 pounds. On the left is our swing that we've worked with up to this point. You know, I take pride in the fact that I try to keep the process for young players very simple, where I'm trying to get them to feel what does it mean to get to the ball quick. What does it mean to have your hands in the right position to work to the inside, and so forth. And until you, I think, really nail down those fundamentals, that bigger moves and the so-called more athleticism in the swing and so forth, they're pointless, because what more athleticism does for a lot of young players, because they don't understand how the parts are supposed to work in the swing, is it really makes the problems that they existed before, I think, twofold. Because they were out of position before, they didn't have good sequence, and so now you're adding bigger moves, which is going to really exacerbate the problem. All right, so here we go with what are the changes that we're making in the off season? Well, because he showed me that he can consistently perform with the right sequence, working to the ball short, we've started building in some bigger moves here. And one of the things you'll notice is in his pre-swing, there's a little bit more of an aggressive move into the ground. And that's exactly what the drill, I don't know if you can call it a drill, but the feeling that I wanted Keelan to have in this particular swing here is I've told him, I said, Keelan, I want you to try, before you take off, I want you to sink into the ground as far as you can. And once you go, I want you to stay low, right? And so what we're doing by doing that is creating the right properties for athleticism. And what are those properties for athleticism? Well, first and foremost is flexion in the legs, right? One of the things you'll see with a lot of good players is that as they begin their stride or their pre-swing, or I should say their weight shift, you'll see that they'll have flexion in their legs. Most importantly, I think both legs are pretty important in this process, but this back leg right here, you'll see more flexion in it than you'll see in most kids, right? Bryce Harper at this point, if you think he's sinking low here, Bryce Harper goes down to where his thigh on his back leg is just about parallel to the ground, right? And so this isn't as low as he could go, but nonetheless, it's the right feeling. So what does this sinking do? This action, as it goes into the back heel, right? This action, if you notice, his spine angle changed completely. Now, I wouldn't talk to most young players about spine angle and stuff like that and really confuse the matter. I like to make sure that we're doing things that create these conditions naturally, right? So this move right here is creating the spine angle that I want, right? It's creating the feeling in the ground that I want Keelan to have. And then the staying low action here, right, is going to maintain all those things. The flexion in the legs is going to maintain all the way into the ground. The spine angle is going to stay the same all the way into the ground. Not to mention his upper half is not going to start unwinding if he's thinking about staying low. Where young players go wrong typically is if you did this first part where you told them, hey, I want you to sit or sink into the backside before you take off. Right? As they begin to stride forward, they begin to stand up, right? And so that's the key. That's what brings young players out of their athleticism. They don't feel very comfortable with their legs being bent when they're hitting. They want to straighten them out or whatever. They want to straighten their spine out so they can swing more level to the ground, whatever it is. And what we're challenging players to do is stay in that posture so that now the conditions are in place to be more powerful. And you see that, you know, his swing hasn't changed much, right? And nor should it. But we've created conditions where his body is going to be a little bit more aggressive and when he unloads the bat, right? And so that all comes from, you know, if you wanted to call it a drill and you wanted key points to work on when you work with your player, is the sinking action. So I have the player basically, you know, I told Keelan in this part of the swing, I want you to just stand up. Don't bend your knees, anything here. I just want you to stand up, and then I want you to feel yourself sink into that back heel, right? Sink as low as you can, right? Or as low as you feel like you can go, and then stay low, right? Those are the keys, and I think you're going to see that your player is naturally going to have a little more pop. But again, If your player has sequence problems where they leave their hands behind, their elbows coming underneath, the barrels dropping behind them, all these things are pointless. But this seems to be the first area that people go to is more athleticism, more athleticism. No, young players have to learn fundamentally how to work short to the ball, just like Josh Donaldson did when he was a kid. He wasn't doing a giant leg kick when he was a kid, right? He was working on the basic principles of the swing. So once you narrow those things down or you get those things in, then build big moves in. That's when it'll make sense, all right? So sink, stay low, right? Stay low all the way into the ground and see if that doesn't help your players pop. All right, guys, see ya.